There was one of these meme things that a friend of mine showed me the other day online. It was one of those group message things where it was one of these Hollywood celebrity types. Can't remember exactly which one it was, but you know, Hollywood celebrities and AA seem to have a bizarre symbiotic relationship. If you notice, it's almost a standard method of operation in Hollywood: drink, party, have a good time, and then go to AA meetings and end up in celebrity rehab and make an appearance on some talk show and talk about how the 12 steps have saved your life and turned everything around, have a relapse, and go through the whole thing all over again. Um, but the point of this video is not to bash on celebrities who promote AA or the people like Dr. Drew who make a living off of talking about how wonderful AA is. In fact, somebody in the group online, the online group Quackaholics Anonymous, had an article. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but it was Stanton Peele, the one of the few addiction experts that challenges the 12-step religion, talking about Dr. Drew and how Dr. Drew has made a living off of the 12 steps. You could say that Hollywood, with it's not really like openly in your face kind of support for 12-step religions, but you can tell it's heavily endorsed by the Hollywood crowd. I mean, if you're a celebrity with a drinking problem, you know, you're going to probably go to AA meetings or something like that. Rock stars too. A lot of rock stars are on that bandwagon as well. But the meme itself said you can't quit drinking for your job. You can't quit drinking for your wife or your kids. You can't quit drinking for anything but yourself. And that's the only way you can stop drinking. And I had thought about that a little bit. It actually got me to thinking. It's what gave me the idea for this video. Is throughout my time in the religion of Quackaholics Anonymous, the cult religion of the 12 steps, that was thrown in my face a lot. You can't quit because of other people. You can't quit because of a career. You can't quit because of this, that, and the other thing. You got to quit for yourself first. You know, if you don't quit for yourself, then you're not going to stay sober. The funny thing about that is when someone would bottom out completely and get to a point where they were crushed by their addictions and they would say, well, I've got nowhere left to turn to, I want to quit. And they would quit for a little while and then end up on another bad relapse. Then AA does its convenient little excuse machine it has. I mean, literally AA, people have an answer for everything, every illogical stupidity that they promote, and they also have an excuse for everything that happens every time the program doesn't work. They'll just say, well, you didn't really want to quit bad enough, or you really wasn't willing to submit to the program, or you really didn't want to admit defeat. You didn't really quit for yourself, otherwise you would have really quit. You know, it's always your fault. It's never the fault of the 12-step cult. It's never the fact that maybe you're given a solution to work with. It's no solution at all. That takes advantage of the fact that you're vulnerable, and when you can't actually quit your addiction as a result of being given insufficient information and stupid cult religion, it's your fault. You didn't really want it bad enough. But that's a saying I've heard over and over again. In fact, I even repeated it when I was an AA member. You know, I had to quit for myself. Usually I would say this when I had, if I was called on it, I'd say, well, you got to remember, my usual share in AA was always the same kind of shit. You know, I cringe when I think about it, but I might as well admit I was a cult member for 10 years. I mean, a little over 10 years, as a matter of fact. My two main things I said is, it's just for the day. It's one day at a time. And then I would often say, I had to do it for myself. I couldn't do it for other people, which is actually bullshit when I look back on it now, because for one thing, to begin with, to start refuting this stupid idea, that would mean nobody who's ever had a severe drinking problem of any type, nobody anywhere on earth, any place, has ever said, you know something, I've got people I care about. In my case, maybe I didn't have people who cared about me at all, but we won't delve into that. Nobody has ever looked around and said, I've got people I care about. I've got something that I care about. I got something that matters to me so much that I don't want to drink myself to death, and I'm going to quit drinking as a result of that. Now, of course, AA does the little dodge thing there. They say, well, if you did that, you're not really an alcoholic to begin with. You know, they, like I said, they're the excuse manufacturing cult, along with really an answer for everything. If a guy says my life is falling apart and I got a DUI and I just can't do this anymore, so I'm going to quit drinking, doesn't go to AA and quits drinking, he wasn't really an alcoholic. They shift goalposts better than anybody I've ever known. But like in one particular situation, I remember hearing about this on the radio, and I had to look it up. Rock and roll singer, or punk rock, or whatever you would want to call it, categorize him as nowadays. He's an older guy now, but back in the day, Billy Idol, if you're old enough to remember him, or if you've ever heard on the rock radio stations a song like White Wedding, or my favorite, Dancing with Myself, which, by the way, he composed because he went into a club in Japan and everybody was looking in mirrors and dancing alone, and he thought that was really strange. So that's where the song came from. But he was notorious for excess drug use, excess drinking, excess everything. As a matter of fact, what I heard on the radio was way back in the early 80s, he went to Thailand, of all places. He got himself a motel room on the 3rd floor in a penthouse, and he started a party that lasted about 3 weeks. The issue became when the hotel managers didn't want him there any longer, and they decided to kick him out, and they couldn't kick him out because they just didn't know how to kick this guy out. They ended up calling the police, who ended up calling the military. The Thailand military actually kicked the doors down to that penthouse suite in Thailand, busted in with machine guns, shot him with a tranquilizer gun, took him out on a stretcher. He woke up in a hospital. He said he didn't remember any of it. He had caused about $300,000 worth of damage. And he later said, I got lucky because I was in Thailand. They could have executed me, or they could have thrown me in a horrible prison, and the government of England wouldn't have tried to get me out because they hated me. The point being, he never actually, I know he quit hard drugs. I think he says he even still occasionally drinks and smokes pot, but he said he didn't want his kids to see him die of an overdose. Now, of course, the AA cult would say, well, see, he wasn't really an alcoholic. He was a drug addict, and drug addicts can quit for other people. Just alcoholics can't. Yeah, you know, there's this weird subcategory called alcoholics where the rules of reality and logic and emotions and everything else doesn't apply because they live in their own separate universe, independent of everybody else, which would actually indicate that if you're quitting for yourself, you would have to actually live in an independent universe, free of everyone else, with nobody else influencing your decisions, nothing around you influencing your decisions, nothing playing a part in your determination, right? You'd have to be in this lone, isolated cell, encapsulated from the rest of the outside world, where other family is not there, where friends are not there, where society is not there, where the legal system is not there, where liver failure is not there, or whatever is there that influences you ultimately to say, I quit drinking. In other words, you would drink yourself into a stupor, for however long a period of time that would go on, and you wake up and you say, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do it because I'm worried about my health. I'm not going to do it because I'm worried about my family. I'm not going to do it because I'm worried about going to jail for another DUI. I'm not going to do it because of this. I'm just going to do it for myself. And of course, if that was even remotely possible, and you went to AA and you swallowed their phony cult religion and you drank again, they just tell you didn't really want to quit. You weren't honest. You weren't willing to do the work. You weren't this. You weren't that. You know, whatever. It is, of course, totally possible for people to want to quit drinking for other reasons other than themselves and themselves alone. Now, of course, this doesn't fit into AA's idea that an alcoholic is just a parasite driven by fear and selfishness. It doesn't fit into the little category of what they call an alcoholic. And, of course, if it doesn't fit in, they'll just say it's not there, it's not real, or they'll just tell you you're lying. But I'm 100% sure that everybody and their brother who's ever quit a destructive addictive problem, whether they did it and gave the cult religion credit for it, or whether they did it out here or not, did it for other mitigating reasons other than themselves and themselves alone. In my own situation, when I finally decided to quit drinking, I had a lot happening at the time. I mean, you know, I have done videos about my neuropathy, but, you know, my neuropathy didn't flare up as bad when I tried to moderate the use. The last time I drank alcohol, I didn't drink a lot of alcohol. I drank enough that it gave me a headache, and it gave me a shaky feeling, and it gave me a dried out feeling behind my eyes. And I had been away from booze for a little while, and I said, you know something, this isn't worth it. I just don't feel like fooling with this any longer. It was weird that I would make that decision after all the drunken binges and all the drunken benders and all the emergency rooms and jails and treatment centers and all the other horror stories that every old timer will claim they did, which they probably didn't do, but did I ultimately quit for myself in terms of what originally motivated me to put the booze down? Maybe that very last drink of saying I don't want to do this anymore was ultimately a decision based on my own feelings and my own health. But there was a lot of things that was going on, a lot of mitigating circumstances that were happening at the time that I said I really got to quit drinking. Because when I left AA, I was sure that I was never going to quit drinking. I was positive that I was going to be one of those unfortunates that they labeled me as, and I was going to be one of those people that was going to die drunk, you know, because after all, some have to die so that others can live and all that shit they told me. I ultimately quit, not just for one reason alone of myself. I ultimately quit because I was in a place where I said there isn't any book that's gonna magically give me an answer on how to do this. There ain't no cavalry coming riding in on horses that's gonna rescue me like at the the end of some fucking John Wayne Western or something like that. There is no mystical magic. There is no mystical magic powder that I can wave above me, like in a Disney cartoon or something like that. That's going to cure me. All this, it's me and me alone that's going to have to do it. There's no steps. There's no prayers. There's no nothing that's going to keep it away from me. And I made a determination. I'm going to try to do it. However, that comes with a little bit of a caveat. Things started to improve in my life. Not very soon afterward. A lot of the times you'll hear people in AA, I quit drinking and I became a millionaire and a CEO in a month, But things began to improve in my life over time. Certain things did come together for me. And yes, material things that they say doesn't matter in AA, even though they're out to steal from you out of the basket or exploit one of their sponsees in a heartbeat. There were things that came together in my life that were outside of myself alone. I did a video once about what a supermarket taught me about AA. I remember a time, believe it or not, how flimsy this may sound, that I said that I was tempted to go drinking one night. And I said, yeah, but I got to be in there in the morning. And to be honest, I kind of like my job now, and I kind of like the people I'm around. And I finally got kind of a stable employment situation going for the first time in a very long time. And something, I'm just not going to take a risk on getting drunk and fucking it all up. That's not for myself and myself alone. That's based on outside extenuating circumstances. I'm sure there are people who have gotten dried out over a period of time and have looked around at their girlfriend, their wife, their boyfriend, their husband, whoever, or their children or whoever, and said, you know what, things are kind of good in my life right now, and I don't want to jeopardize it all by throwing it all away. And going out and getting plastered and drunk and risking a DUI and risking liver failure, risking whatever. I'm talking all over myself and tying my tongue here, so I'll try to scale it back a little bit. But the one thing that AA takes advantage of is everybody who drinks, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't know of anybody who thinks, yeah, getting drunk is good for your health. Getting drunk is perfectly 100% safe. Everybody who drinks knows it's dangerous. They know that you can get behind the wheel of a car and kill somebody in a DUI accident when you have too much to drink. They know that over a period of time you can wreck your health. They know over a period of time if they get out of control that things will fall apart. They know these things for a fact in the back of their minds. And when they get out of control with those types of things, they're pretty much desperate to swallow any solution in front of them. Hey, I don't want to die in a DUI wreck. I don't want to wake up with a bad hangover in a jail cell and realize I killed an entire family driving drunk last night. I don't want to end up having a fucking stroke. I don't want to end up like this or whatever. Desperate enough to believe whatever solution is placed in front of them, and then when that solution doesn't work because it is not a kind of solution at all, they're blamed for it. Well, you must have not really wanted to quit drinking that bad. You probably didn't quit drinking for yourself. If you'd really wanted to quit drinking, you wouldn't have quit drinking because you didn't want to get a DUI. You'd have quit drinking for yourself. If you'd really wanted to quit drinking, you wouldn't have quit drinking because you was afraid you was going to lose your job. You would have quit for yourself. If you weren't really quitting drinking, you weren't quitting drinking for yourself. You was afraid your wife would divorce you. You was afraid your kids wouldn't love you anymore. You got to quit for yourself first. That's completely, utterly idiotic because all of those things correlate back to you and yourself alone. Nobody lives in a completely independent, isolated vacuum where external circumstances and external things that are taking place don't influence the decisions they make. But it's one of those things that everybody says, I needed to quit for myself. Not for anybody else, but for myself. It kills me how that's accepted, but here's the rub of the video, the point I really wanted to make now that I've kind of rambled on about it. So many people in AA are encouraged to hit a rock bottom when they come to AA. And in fact, that kind of thinking, that very thing I just outlined, I think, when they say you can't quit drinking for anybody else, you got to quit drinking for yourself, that very thing gives them a license to bully people who still have things to hold on to in life. Well, if you come to AA and you're still married, I'm not so sure about you. If you come to AA and you still got your children, I'm not so sure about you. I've heard this shit said in meetings a lot of times. I've heard people in meetings say, well, as long as I had a good, decent job, AA wasn't going to work for me. And I've heard people say, well, as long as I had money in the bank, AA wasn't going to do nothing for me. I had money in the bank. I was God. I thought I was God as long as I had money in the bank. I had to lose all the money in the bank so I could become teachable and and lick my sponsor's shoes every day and call him at 7 o'clock every day and hang up on me. That kind of thing, while it sounds like a bunch of hot air coming from a bunch of morons, which they are, that like to dominate the meetings and get attentions from them, get attention, not attentions, but get attention from themselves, is a really mortally dangerous thing, I think, to send in people's direction. Because you're telling a new guy who's just walked through the door, who might be there through a psychiatrist, suggesting it, or through a treatment center, whatever, you're telling that guy, psychologically on some level, that if you still got a job, if you still got this, if you still got that, if you still care about what your children think, if you still care about other people, that you really want to quit drinking for those reasons, that those reasons are all invalid. There's no reason for you to even try to quit drinking right now because you're not doing it for the right reasons. So because you're not doing it for the right reasons, you need to go out there and get drunk again and keep getting drunk until you lose everything that you care about, and then you'll do it for the right reasons. Of course, when people actually have a self-fulfilling prophecy, where they go out and they actually drink everything away that they ever cared about, and then they get to AA and it still doesn't work, AA will say, well, some have to die so that others can live. AA will say, well, you didn't really want it bad enough. Well, you're not honest. You probably didn't do a 4-step. You probably didn't get a sponsor. You probably didn't do the right prayer in the right word, or you didn't hold your head the right way when you were saying the prayer. It's the same fucking self-perpetuating misery that AA thrives off of. AA really doesn't want people to be happy. AA doesn't want people to succeed. If you notice, no matter what you do in AA, the little ruling hierarchy and the AA celebrities and the AA old slimers and all those other people, you're never going to be quite good enough to be in their little inner circle. And the only way you could ever be in their little inner circle is be a scumbag like them. I mean, maybe if you exploit enough people, and maybe if you screw enough people over, and maybe if you steal from enough people and you keep picking up medallions, you could probably be accepted into the society of complete, utter scumbags that will tell you they're humble and spiritual. But it's a terrible idea to tell somebody they can't quit because of a job. It's a terrible idea to tell somebody they can't quit because of a wife or a husband. It's a terrible idea to tell someone they can't quit because of a career. Of course you can quit for all those things. I mean, why shouldn't you be able to quit for all those things? AA just wants to see you bottom out and lose everything so you can become totally wholly dependent upon them. That's what it is. I used to see it happen in meetings all the time, especially those meetings after the meetings. I'd see old timers say, well, he needs to lose that good job. Yeah. I can't wait for his wife to divorce him. Oh, those kids, they're never going to speak to that guy again. I hope he gets picked up on a DUI. I might even call the police on him one night and get him picked up by a DUI. That's the attitude of your old timers, the people that you're turning your fucking will and life over to, that you think are going to tell you how to find God in some kind of bizarre, phony spirituality and lead you to happy, joyous freedom through the cult religion. Anyway, I think I've talked long enough for about 18 minutes there. But if you're trying to quit an addiction out there because you care about your children or because you care about your family, you're on the right track, and you can do that. You can do that one thing. Anyway, till next time.